curious, I use Zoom as sort of the main platform, and then I broadcast through Restream.io, which then broadcasts onto my channel, YouTube, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and that sort of thing. So it's actually quite interesting to see. And I've got feedback coming in. Anyway, so it's a fun little thing, because when you start Zoom, you don't actually see when it's live, so you just kind of have to start talking at any time. So, all right. So for everybody who's joined in, thank you so much. If you do have questions along the way, please type them in the chat. Happy to answer them. I may not have time because I switch screens until the end, but I still would love to sort of see what questions you have. I'll try to check in every now and then. And that sort of thing. And if you're watching live, please watch live and add in your comments and questions in the live feed as well. And again, with the live streaming, I'm not actually able to see the comments through Zoom, which is a feature fail in my mind, because you can't actually do that. But some of the other platforms do have that. But the combination I'm using doesn't allow that. But I would still love to hear from you. So if you do have an idea or a question or a comment, please just hashtag replay, and I'll get back to it as soon as I can with an answer. So thank you so much. So, all right. So without further ado, let's get started. Just going to share my screen here, and then we'll get rolling. Actually, the other thing I love about Zoom is that it allows you to actually connect directly to the iPad, which is fantastic, because that's what we need to do here. All I've got is my iPad pencil and my iPad, and run the presentation from there, because I feel it really adds that extra level of how can you present what's going on, and how can you actually understand what the pieces are. Just let me make sure I've got this. Okay, there we go. Just want to close this out. And we're good to go there. Always check your tech. Sometimes it fails and sometimes it fails midstream. And you know what? That's okay. It's going to happen. So just make sure that you're prepared for it and that sort of thing as well. So, all right, let's get back to the screen. There we go. And we're good and connected. All right, so cool. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Pulse 2020. Today, I'm going to be talking about how we can actually use and leverage the pieces of the digital economy, the disruptive digital economy, as we've seen in the last 9 months or so, and really how it paints that story and that journey for us as businesses, as well as for our customer, and what they need to do, and how we can actually make this a little bit different for them as well. So I'm going to be taking you on a story in terms of some of the data that's there, that's right out in the open. Take some look at the actual repercussions of COVID and how that's kind of affected us, but how it's also transformed a lot of businesses along the way. I'm going to be talking about some business models too that we're seeing a lot more traction with. Obviously a lot more digital focused. So that's really, really important to understand that the future is digital. And it seems kind of funny saying that, but we've been online for 25 plus years. And within that 25 years, we've obviously done a lot, but there's so much more to be able to do as well. And that's what's really important here, is how can we actually start from today and move forward from here. So it's really, how do you actually put these pieces in place to make it work for your business, and to give you that exposure, to give you that that online presence that's really, really so important as well. So, and you know what? It's December, and I love talking about this every time, but this clock doesn't stop ticking. Where to from here? You know, where are you going to start? Where are you going to continue? What are you going to do to be able to move that forward as well? So super, super important. So hello, my name is Doyle Bueller. I guide digital challenger businesses in navigating the daunting digital economy and overcoming the fear, anxiety, and resistance of operating as a true digital company in the 2020s. I help them to discover, align, and skyrocket their online business and visibility so the world knows who they are and how they do business. So here's what the digital economy looks like and how your business can leverage it. And I'm going to be talking a concept about what I call digital challengers. And if you look at it from a perspective of where are these people, these are sort of the incumbents, and these are the challengers. So it doesn't mean you have to be number one. Okay, these guys are number one. That's cool. guess what? We all need to do a lot of extra work to be able to get there. We don't start there, right? We have to get, that traction. We have to build up the systems. We have to build up the strategies to be able to do that. But I'm talking about challengers in this space here, and we are the digital challengers, right? So change your attitude, unfuck your head, make an honest, unsentimental accounting of your present condition, prepare to be disappointed, define what you want instead clearly. By clear, I mean precise and feasible. An unrealistic objective is sure to sabotage the process. Hit the books, try and error, inquire, risk, mimic, insist, resist. And a shout out to Jeff Hetherington for finding that wonderful, wonderful quote for me as well. So, and we've seen a lot of shifting as well happening. And that's super important to understand and to see what it is that it's actually happening. So previously, we've been really focusing on how many clicks we get, because that's what we're looking at, and that's what we can see. But there's this whole world behind that says that it's more important to making every click count as well. We need to shift our strategies to making these clicks count so that we're not wasting our time. We're not wasting our resources. We're taking a very clear look at what's important and what's not, and how we can actually move past that. And we hear a lot about vanity metrics, and that's part of it too. It's like, it doesn't matter how many likes or shares your posts get. What it comes down to is actual engagement and what those actual clicks mean, which is how we have to look at things. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I kind of get into the thick of it. So you can download some resources here as well, related to the whole concept of digital expedition, which I'm going to go into this a little bit in terms of one of the new models that's out there. But I've also got a bunch of resources as well. And if you want to take a look at some of the sources of the data that I'm presenting, they're all there. bit.ly/digitalpulse2020 resources. And if you want more information on the digital expedition resources, it's bit.ly/digital expedition resources. So go there if you're interested in any of the sources. I've got all the sources listed there. And you can click in and read more about what it says about them specifically as well. If you do have any questions, please type in the chat along the way. And as I mentioned at the beginning, if you are watching this on the socials, please just hashtag replay so that I know you're there, and I will respond as quickly as possible to your questions or comments or feedback too. Please feel free to do that as well. And if you find this is helpful, please like and share the link to the video or the link to the resources or whatever the case may be. And if you're able to stick around, I've got some early Christmas gifts as well. I've got the Digital Expedition cheat sheet, which is this thing here. And it outlines the 10 base camps to build your digital ecosystems and your digital assets. I'm going to give you access to a new Digital Expedition micro training course as well. You'll get the breakthrough book, the ebook, the Digital Expedition resources, and then a free paperback book as well, for going to leadership.digital as well. So please stick around, ask your questions, and let's get into this. So first things first, challenge is another word for opportunity. So, I've kind of coined this term, but FOMO mood is what I call it, fear of missing out on digital. So there's a lot of companies there that need to be able to harness the real power of that. And I'm going to show you what has happened to those that have and what has happened to those who haven't as well. So they're both there, and they're both sort of looking at what do we actually need to do differently, and how can we think a little bit differently as well. So, what are you missing out on? Challenge is another word for opportunity. Here's what happened and what your next 90 days plan must have is what I'm going to be talking about. Challengers should see this time as a tremendous opportunity. Remember, I spoke about the digital challenges earlier. That's what we are, right? That's what we need to do. Businesses and consumers are willing to explore and evaluate alternatives, and even entirely new brands have the chance to change mindsets, disrupt established preferences, and win new customers. So don't ever feel that it's too far along. I'm not going to jump in the pool. It is now. You have to look at it in terms of when do you start and how do you start, or continue to start too, right? As I said before, we're in that challenger position, right up here. So we need to understand what it is that we need to do to continue that journey as well into that incumbent position also. So really, really important that we kind of open our mind and see what we can, and don't be afraid to try. And I'm going to talk about experimentation coming up as well. It's a huge opportunity there to be able to see how you can actually test it and what's important to test as well. So let's get into some of the data. This is related to specifically COVID specifically, but this is from the Twilio report, which I'll show the link to coming up. But we look at how has the COVID pandemic sped up digital transformation. And digital transformation, I'm going to talk to that about shortly. It's not always what we think it is, and sometimes it's completely undefined. And so it really comes down to how do we see it fit within our business as well. So within Australia, we found that most businesses have decided, 76 have decided that we need to speed this up dramatically. Okay, we can't just wait around for this natural progression, this natural movement of business and growth and that sort of thing, which is a cool stat, which I'll show you shortly. We actually have to take action. And I guess that's what 76% of companies are saying within Australia, that they need to take action. They need to understand this to deal with it. And even though the pandemic, or it's not over, of course, by any means, but it's come under control in Australia, even despite it coming under control for the most part, businesses are realizing that there's a tremendous opportunity to be able to move forward as well. So almost all companies are looking for new ways to engage customers and stakeholders. So this is critical, right? 76% of businesses rather are saying we can do different, we can add more, we can make this a big difference in terms of how do we offer it to our customer, how do we create that additional engagement. And we've seen it, right? A lot of companies specifically have said, here's my revised business model, here's how I'm going to be going forward in the digital economy. So we need to find new ways of engaging customers and other stakeholders, right? That's been very, very clear. Despite the physical restrictions, despite the location restrictions, digital really allows you to make distance irrelevant. So if we can actually understand that, then we can move forward. It doesn't matter if you're not located next door or down the block. It matters how can you actually connect and engage with those people, outside of your 10-kilometer radius, outside of your city, your state, your country, and that sort of thing. So the opportunity is immense as well. So companies say COVID-19 has accelerated their digital communication, and communication is obviously the key word here, right? So communication strategy by 6 years, so a huge jump. But we're talking communication, so that can be internal communication, but that can also be communication with your customer and with your audience as well. So it's really important to see that that's made it faster. Businesses have said, guess what? We're moving quickly on this. We're engaging quickly on this. And communication, again, it's a little bit higher level than actually digital strategic stuff in terms, or tactical stuff rather, in terms of actually customer engagement and distribution and that sort of thing. But the point is that this is where we can look towards saying, hey, we need to upscale. We need to move quickly because the opportunity is there. We need to take advantage of it as quickly as possible. So 97 in summary, 97% report COVID-19 has sped up digital transformation. So that's pretty big, right? So that's the inherent understanding that every business has that says that, it's not the same. There is, I know we don't necessarily like that word, but there is there is a new normal, right? But there's this transition, this transformational stage as well that I'm going to talk about coming up as well. So it's really important to say that this is what's going to happen. And the kick in the butt has been the pandemic. And so as horrible as it's been, it also has sort of shone some light in terms of how businesses can actually compete better in the digital space as well. So all the resources are there. If you want to go take a look at that stat. Now, one of the important things too is when we're purchasing, it's not just as easy as going and buying something. We all know that, right? As purchasers ourselves, as consumers ourselves, or looking for services or that sort of thing, there's stuff that happens that we need to look at in terms of how does this affect ourselves, and how does that affect our ability to make these decisions as well. So there's 6 categories, and these are from Google, but we look at heuristics, we're looking at the power of now, we're looking at social proof, we're looking at scarcity basis, we're looking at scarcity bias, we're looking at authority bias, and then the power of free as well. So every consumer, every purchaser, including you and me, has to kind of go through these 6 steps to understand what's important and how we're able to do that. So that's what's going to be important, is how do we actually navigate these data points, and how do we actually get through to them as well. Yes. So anyway, sorry, the detail there is thinkwithgoogle.com. So category heuristics, right? Short descriptions of key product specifications can simplify purchase decisions. The power of now: the longer you have to wait for a product, the weaker the proposition becomes. Social proof, recommendations, and reviews from others can be very persuasive. Scarcity bias: as stock or availability of a product decreases, the more desirable it becomes. Authority bias: being swayed by an expert or a trusted source. And the power of free: a free gift with purchase, even if unrelated, can be a powerful motivator as well. So these are key ingredients that says we can actually act upon these as a business. We can actually do these. This is part of that journey that we can provide, making sure that we simplify how we talk about it, making sure that we understand the waiting list concept and the oversubscribed concept by Daniel Priestley as well. We need to look at social proof. We need to look at scarcity. And in this case, it doesn't necessarily become false scarcity. It becomes, how do you actually offer that? And you can only serve a certain number of customers as well. So we have to look at how do you actually do that in a legitimate, authentic way as well. Not just to say, well, I'm never going to be offering this product again, yet it's digital. So there's ways of tying that together as well. And the power of free, and this is an interesting concept that I'm going to cross over slightly with cheap as well, to compare that comparison that a lot of people make and what's actually the best way to be able to do this in going forward in that. Now, Google has sort of quantified this as what they call the messy middle. And it's an interesting concept, and I'll get it. Can't go into too much detail, but obviously just some high level detail, just to kind of present it as a possible solution for how you market and how you develop your digital strategy as well. So the main categories here is that it is messy, and I've been saying this for years, right? It's messy. It's not easy. It is difficult, but we have to look at this: is it less enjoyable, more enjoyable? Is this high complexity and low complexity? And what it does is it actually takes these elements to say that, yeah, there is some issues with a lot of these, but do we make it complex? Do we make it low complex? Do we make it easy? Like, how easy is it to buy cereal online? How easy is it to buy cinema tickets, right? How easy is it to buy a lot of this stuff? Very easy. So we kind of need to say, hey, how do we get into this zone here? Make it more enjoyable, make it less complex so that we can do it easily. There's stuff, and keep in mind too that there's service-based businesses as well that can be within this space, right? So we need to look at how do we actually move that forward as well. So how do we make our business to be able to interact and engage with not complex and enjoyable as well? And you can do that by looking at it more as a product, but also as how do you actually express that your digital ecosystem, your digital assets, to actually make it work as well. So we need to move outside of less enjoyable, right? We need to make it less complex as well as we get into it. And that's basically what Google is saying. So challengers, the digital challengers should see the messy middle as a window of opportunity. Businesses and consumers are willing to explore and evaluate alternatives, and even entirely new brands have the chance to change mindsets, disrupt established preferences rather, and win new customers as well. So how do you do that? Ensuring brand presence so that your product or service is strategically front of mind while your customers explore. Intelligently and responsibly employing behavioral science, like I talked about those 6 biases, so that your assets and messages become more compelling as customers evaluate their options. They're looking, and it's like a big mess. I call it the black wire, but it's an issue in terms of how do we actually unwind that? How do we pull that apart as well? So, and then finally, closing the gap between triggers and purchases. And this is a cool diagram that I'm going to show shortly, but it basically outlines how you can actually pull this together and what you can do for it. So challengers should see the messy middle as a window of opportunity. It's what I've been talking about for years. So it's nice to see that Google has said, hey, wait a sec, there actually is some really interesting work that we need to be able to do here. So digital adoption and penetration. So how do you substantially increase your digital adoption and penetration to deliver your unique value, on-demand delivery, and digital experiences worth remembering? Let's take a look. It's the economy, silly. So I've talked about this before, and there's a lot of change over the last 9 months. But if we look in this section, And this is what I was talking about previously. Like growth has been pretty steady, right? What would that be, like a couple percentage points a year? Nothing fantastic, but you know what? It's steadily moved forward. And this is specific to e-commerce, okay? And just so it's clear, this is UK and USA, and I have some Australian stats, which I'll show you shortly as well. But if you look at this in terms of what's important and how it's actually working, is that within the couple months of COVID, which would be this gap here, this is from March to I think May, we've seen a huge rise, right? Absolute massive rise forward in terms of providing that service, businesses actually being able to deliver, and consumers wanting to be able to shift and to order what they want online. Because why? Well, they didn't have the access to the physical retailers. So what has arisen because of that? You've had click and collect, rather. You've had curbside pickup. You've had these opportunities for businesses to actually engage on that process. But what it really fundamentally says is that we're at we're at about 15 to 20% of digital adoption and penetration. This means fundamentally that only 20% of businesses are actually using and leveraging digital to capability that allows you to harness that ability to bring your bring your customer on that journey as well through digital. So whether it's through apps, whether it's through websites, whether it's through quizzes or some platforms or that sort of thing that you've created, only 20% of businesses are doing that. And they're the ones that were actually able to benefit from this. Okay. They're the ones that were able to understand that, hey, there's a surge here. How do I actually rearrange my business? How do I shift what's important to be able to say, how can I offer this a little bit differently? Are there, in terms of e-commerce, are there capabilities to have a click and collect so I can compete with the Home Depots and the Bunnings and that sort of thing from around the world? Whether you're a small business, and that's really important, you can compete now. So it's not really an excuse to say, oh, I'm too small or I don't really have those capabilities. They all exist now. The businesses that actually took this and were able to adapt quickly were using existing technology, okay? They weren't using any fantastical piece of hardware or software or whatever the case may be. So what does that mean? It means that you need to look at how can we actually address it? How can you as a business increase your digital adoption to 30, 40%? To be able to capitalize on that, because economically it's had a huge impact as well. Economically, we see that here, right? A huge increase compared to year over year in the e-commerce growth. 30% of retail revenue has grown substantially from that, and this compares offline, which is the gray bars, to online, which is the red bars. So it's showing you that there's been a huge shift. There's been a huge downward as well because of the lockdowns in certain countries. And again, this is the UK specifically. We'll probably see this go down again because that's what's been happening. But where can we actually move this forward, right? Or what trajectory are we on with businesses being able to say, again, have I enabled everything for my customer to engage with me in their journey? And if you can't say that specifically, you're kind of down here. And if you can say that specifically, that this is the platform, this is the capabilities, this is the training, this is the education, this is what I have to be able to work with, then that's a positive for you. So we've also seen 35% growth in 2 quarters. That's pretty big, right? So despite lockdown, the growth of businesses doing business online has increased substantially as well. So again, what if you could do that? It's provided 40% of retail revenues, excluding groceries. So again, we've seen a huge uptick. It's given these businesses, I think it's 5 months 5 years of growth in 3 to 6 months. So how can that not be good for businesses? Okay. So again, those are the ones that are saying, look, let's look at this profoundly. Let's look at this. How do we actually put these pieces together? How do we actually increase our digital adoption as well? In terms of Australia, we've seen similar patterns here. We've seen a huge increase, not a huge increase, but a gradual increase as well. And then a drop as things went back to normal, but we've continued to see a growth as well. So it's not going away. And I think that that's probably pretty apparent for most of us out there to realize if I haven't done anything yet, I need to realize, how do I actually do something to be able to capitalize this, to make that journey easier and less complex, and to give my customer exactly what they need to be able to handle their journey and that sort of thing. So right now, I said we're about 20 to 30% digital penetration adoption. That's it, right? That's all of it. So if you're at 0 and if you're at 100, most businesses are here. Okay. I'd love to hear where you are, right? So if you can, throw it in the chat or in a comment. Tell me where you are. Are you at, this is 50% digital adoption? Do you have the capability to be able to carry that full conversation forward, is from introduction to sale, right? Do you have all those steps in place to be able to carry that customer journey forward? And if you don't, then your digital adoption is fairly low. And if you do, then guess what? You're working up in this space. Now, wouldn't it be cool? What if you could update that digital adoption for your business? Fundamentally, we've seen that huge growth coming up. Okay. And again, it'll level off, but it'll still continue forward. So we've seen that. It's very obvious. So what are you going to do about it? So I'd love to see what you specifically have for, where do you feel that you fit in terms of the digital adoption curve? So are you kind of just getting started? Are you in around the 30% of most businesses? Most businesses are over in this space, as I've clearly shown. Can we get it up? Can we get it further? What would happen to your business if you could? And what would happen to every business in terms of the economy if we could just shift that little bit? If 10,000 businesses moved from 30%, let's give the benefit of the doubt there, to 50%, I've shown you the significant growth that can occur because of that for those businesses that are doing that. All right, so let's get into some of the digital journey in terms of what's happening in the digital economy. What are people doing? How are they responding, and that sort of thing. So as the world adapts and changes, businesses need to change with the times, and that requires data. The knowledge of knowing what your customer is doing, how they are doing it, and what they want to do. Every click, swipe, share, or like tells you something about your customer and what they want. This gives you the power to make data-driven decisions at any moment on any device, so you can make smart choices in a rapidly changing world. Data is the new oil, right? It's the lubricant that allows you to make these decisions, to say, this is important, this is what my customer is doing, and that sort of thing. I always love to start off, and as I didn't mention this, but I do this every year. I have sort of my state of digital every year. So every year I run through data of, what does this picture of digital look like? So this is my 2020 version. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. But I always love to start with, what's actually happening. And I'm sure you've seen this, but, every minute of the day, so 60 seconds, what actually happens. And it's really quite phenomenal. It's quite interesting. I'll just go through a quick highlights as well. And we've seen this, and this is probably going to change. But when this was created, and I specifically sought 2020 data, and as far along as possible, but 208,000 participants in meetings. All right, so that's pretty massive. Some of the other things that we've seen: DoorDash deliveries, Instagram users post 347 stories within a minute, YouTube users upload 500 hours, Twitter new users, consumers spend $1 million online every minute. And this was one that I haven't seen before. And a shout out to my great friend Mark Jarrett from the UK, who's runs some amazing WhatsApp groups. And this is very recent, and he's sort of ticked onto that trend to say, hey, how do we actually use WhatsApp for businesses? So highly recommend that you get in touch with Mark Jarrett going forward. But this is massive: 41 million messages in 60 seconds on WhatsApp every single minute of the day. Some other things: video voice calls. This is probably going to be replaced by the Zoom conference call and that sort of thing. I know we've seen a massive increase of that as well. What else? TikTok is installed 2,700 times per minute. Venmo users send $240,000. Spotify adds 28 tracks and Instagrams. This is on the business profile, sees 138,000 as well. And it's nice actually to compare this also over the years. So this outer ring is 2020, and then we have, 2019. And then we have an inner ring, which is 2018 and then 2017 as well. So it's cool to, whoops. Oh, there we go. My magic pen is working. So it just kind of shows the comparison in terms of YouTube, Facebook, Google, Instagram, Twitter, WordPress, etc., WhatsApp also. So actually WhatsApp has been there for a while. I guess didn't recognize that. If you want to look more, Smart Insights for that one, and Visual Capitalist for that one as well. So I'm going to get into some of the data from We Are Social, Simon Kemp, and Hootsuite. So a shout out to them. They always prepare some spectacular data packages in terms of the pulse, what's actually going on in digital as well. So total population of the earth, 7.8 billion people. That's a few, isn't it? Right. Mobile phone users 5.2 billion, internet users 4.6. So actually more people are using mobile than desktop and that sort of thing. Active social media users 4.14 billion. Really interesting to see. What have we seen in terms of growth? So October 2020 versus October 2019, 1% growth in population, 2% growth in mobile, 7.5% growth in internet users, and then 12.3% in active social media usage. So you can really see that people are increasing what they're doing online. And obviously social media is a huge part of that, but a complete and comprehensive digital strategy does not have just social media. It has all the other pieces of your digital ecosystem and all your assets as well. So what do we spend with media using the internet? This is each day. We spend about 6 hours, almost 7 hours online. Using social media, about half of that, 2 hours and 30 minutes. Watching television, 3 hours and 29 minutes. Streaming music, 1.5 hours. And playing games, 1 hour and 14 minutes. So an interesting look to see what is that we're actually doing. So in terms of business to businesses, what are the preferred ways to contact suppliers? We see a huge rate of 51% actually are using email, 40% are calling. Contact forms on websites are using about 27%, speaking them to trade events, and contact them using social media. So what this really says is that there's a lot of ways that people reach out to you, your business, and this is how it's actually done. So social media channels used for B2B research, again, pretty typical, but what do we have here? We've got YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Messenger, Pinterest, Snapchat, Reddit, TikTok, WeChat, UNE, Zing, and others as well. So what does this mean? It means that people are looking at your social. They're looking at what do you do in this social space. So it obviously is a huge part of your digital ecosystem. So you need to look at how do you actually embrace that? How do you actually utilize those so that people can ask you questions? And you're maybe thinking like YouTube, that's just putting up videos. Well, exactly. So people are making those opportunities to be able to show up. Let's see, did I just lose my screen here? No, just put it back on the main screen. Okay, so B2B most influential information sources. So again, this is where we kind of have to bridge the gap between digital and offline. So a lot of people look at how do you actually get to talk with new people? It still comes down to recommendations. So digital is not going to save that side of things. It's going to be more of how do you actually engage that? How do you actually produce that? And how do you understand what's going on and that sort of thing? So you still need to get out there as a business. You still need to do that. You still need to talk with people because a lot of the recommendations come from outside of digital, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly okay. There's no such thing as 100% digital business. And I can say that as a person who's been in digital for like 18 years. So it's really important that you actually leverage that as well. Some other things, user reviews, recommendations, conferences, supplier websites, recommendations, supplier calls. But anyway, this gives you an idea that the footprint of digital is very specific. It needs to work in conjunction with everything else that's there as well. So keep that in mind. Back to social media behaviors. So, what are we actually doing here? This one, you used, visited, or used a social network or messaging service in the past month. Okay. Actively engaged with or contributed to social media in the past month. So we're seeing like people are really working there. And that's customers, that's businesses, that's everybody. So average amount of time per day spent using social media, again, about 2.5 hours. Average number of social media accounts per internet user. Okay. And this one is quite interesting. Every user has about 8 accounts. Okay. So that means they're spread pretty thin in terms of their focus. So we need to be able to understand how can we actually reach out specifically on that channel as well. Percentage of internet users who use social media for work. Okay, this has increased over the years as well. So we need to look at that in terms of, okay, well, what does that mean? That means people are using it at work, which is fine, and they might be searching for you as well. So no surprise here, the world's most used social platforms: Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and then down the road from there. So what's the new one? TikTok. This is probably, these stats are from October. Yeah, 19th of October 2020 as well. So keep in mind that. So again, what that means is that you can decide which channel, which platform you use for business, whether it's for marketing or just social media or whatever the case may be. Facebook advertising audience overview. So again, this comes down to what is the audience doing in terms of advertising. And again, with any sort of digital strategy, advertising has to be a part of that as well. So it can't be a part that is ignored as well, so that you're able to understand where your customer is and what they're doing. So this is just Facebook, and I've got a few others that I'll show. So number of people that Facebook reports can be reached adverts on Facebook. So 2.14 billion people can be reached with ads. Okay, so what this means is, guess what? I mean, you don't necessarily need to talk with 2.14 billion people, but what it's saying is that there's a huge opportunity for you to be very niched and very specific. And that's what Facebook advertising comes down to, is how specific can you be to, specifically engage with your audience, your customer, what they're doing, how they're doing it, some of their behaviors, some of their activities, that sort of thing. So it makes it very, very critical to say you can't just put out a general campaign to business owners, for example, or broad scale type analysis. You have to be very, very specific. And how do you do that? With testing, with experimenting. It doesn't mean you have to have a massive campaign that runs forever and ever. What it does mean is that you get out and you test your Facebook ads and see how they work, and then make adjustments for that. Everything should be run as an experiment in digital in the 2020s as well. So how many share population that marketers can reach with adverts? It's about 35%, a quarter-on-quarter change. So this has actually gone up. And there are some stats that show overall spend has gone down because of COVID as well. So it's quite interesting. Surprisingly, the percent of as ad audience that Facebook reports as female is 43% and 57%. So there's actually more males that are being advertised to, which I thought was quite interesting. We didn't seem like avid shoppers, but I guess I'm mistaken. In terms of your market, so who are you advertising to, based on simple things like gender and age as well? So, is your business focused on specific ages and genders, or young set or an older set, or that sort of thing? So we need to look at that when you're marketing and when you're creating these campaigns, is who's actually going for. So yes, if you're marketing toward 25 to 34-year-olds, great. They've got, a huger percentage of the overall market, which is good. But again, can you dive into that specific data to say, okay, this is the type of 25 to 34-year-old male or female that are utilizing what I have to offer as well. So again, you have to be very specific. You have to niche your audience massively to be able to define that. But this just shows a general, curve of what people are doing, who's responding. So at this stage, it typically still is a fairly younger crowd, in the 18 to 34-year-olds as well. So something to consider. So monthly ad clicks. So this is demonstrating, who's getting the ads based on initial criteria, but then this is actually who's clicking on them as well. So it's interesting because we see a higher rate of females actually clicking on the ads than males, right? Their males are just kind of, clicking along, that sort of thing. So it's actually quite interesting to be able to see that, because this means that these are the people who are clicking on. So even if your audience may not be females, the females are clicking on the ads more than the males. So if you are able to niche down specific to that gender, that age, again, you're able to target them much more specifically, which is much easier to do. So Facebook monthly ad clicks by geography. So worldwide, this is how many ad clicks. So medium number times of each month that the typical Facebook user age 18 plus clicks on a Facebook ad. So they will click on it 12 times per month per user. So again, it's interesting to see where people most clicking. Israel, Denmark, Romania, Australia is way up here. At 23 ads are clicked on per month per user, which is actually quite fascinating. So this could mean, and not necessarily, that you've got a higher affinity for advertising to work in Australia, which is quite interesting as well. Where you don't would be, down in this space as well. So again, not to say that if your business is marketing to those areas, it might just require a more collective effort, a tighter digital strategy, a tighter tactical implementation of campaigns and that sort of thing as well. So Facebook post engagement rate by page size. So this basically shows you how big does how many fans does your page need to be in. Remember at the beginning I was talking about, it doesn't necessarily matter about that size. What really matters is what you're actually doing. So this is actually somewhat counterintuitive. So the generally speaking, the larger the group, should I need more space here? The larger the group is, the less they interact. So how would that look? The larger the group, like that, I think, if this is a graph, the larger the group, the less they interact. So size and interaction. Okay, so the larger the group gets, I think I have that backwards. That should be interaction. But I think you get the point. So this is interaction, and this is size. Okay, so the larger the group gets, the less there we go. The larger the group gets, the less interaction. The interaction goes down, the bigger the group size is. So what does that mean? There's a sweet spot here. You don't have to have 100,000 fans to be able to have better engagement. Okay, and this number is kind of small, and it has been decreasing over the years as well. But on average, again, this is what it's about. 0.5% of people will respond and engage on a Facebook page with less than 10,000 fans. Okay, and that's the key ingredient here. 10,000 fans or less. If you're talking about 10,000 to 100,000 fans, guess what? It's gone down 0.28, a quarter of a percentage point on a bigger group. So again, what does that mean? That means that people like to engage with something that they feel a little bit more connected with. You don't need to have a massive group, because if you're in more than 100,000 fans, guess what? Nobody cares. They don't care what it comes down to. So take a look at that. The size, if you want more interaction, the smaller the group is. So let's say we're at these 3 points here, demonstrated here. The sweet spot is here within this space, less than 10,000. And again, you might have to find that specifically for your audience, but that's what you can actually see, is that I should make my group smaller so that we have more engagement. So maybe at 10,000, if you're going well on Facebook, at 10,000, split off the groups, niche it down to something a bit more specific within your audience and what they're wanting to be able to do and understand and that sort of thing. Fascinating look there. So share of Facebook page, post by post type. So this is what are people posting and what are people responding to, again, which is most important. So average number of posts per day, 1.55. This is business pages, right? Photo posts is the highest, 55.6%. Video posts is next, 22%. Link posts, shares of total posts, right? So if I share something outside of Facebook or whatever, I share a different story, a news article, whatever the case may be, that's 18%. And then just a status post, those are pretty low. And I do remember that back in the earlier days of Facebook, like this text posts were the most popular. So we need to look at that. What's most important? Look at photo pages. Second most important, video posts. Third most, shares, and then the fourth most, just text posts and that sort of thing. So that helps you prioritize what you can post as well. So let's talk a little bit about Instagram. Again, similar audience to Facebook. The core audience is here, 18 to 34-year-old. Male, female is fairly well balanced as well. And it doesn't mean that you can't market to these groups as well, but you have to be much more specific. You have to niche in. You have to make that audience know that they're important, and being able to personalize very specifically for them. LinkedIn advertising audience. This one's a little bit higher, 25 to 34-year-old, about 34% female, male rather, and 25% female also. And again, doesn't mean that you can't market to these guys, but if you are, then you need to be much more structured and much more understanding of what your customer wants and needs, and that comes down to data personalization as well. So profile of Snapchat. We've heard a lot about Snapchat audience. It's quite interesting. I thought this would be quite swayed, like some of the others like that, more towards the middle, but it's not. It's just basically pretty standard. So if you're looking at marketing using Snapchat, again, more, if you're the older you get, I guess, the less males are interested in that sort of thing. So interesting to see going there. So what about Twitter? Male dominated in the 25 to 49-year-olds. Okay, very specific channel that is male focused as well. So keep that in mind in terms of what do you want, who are you marketing to, and how are you marketing as well, and that'll provide that ability. YouTube, 2 billion logged in users of YouTube each month. Share of the population that uses YouTube rather is 33%. Total number of hours watched on YouTube each day, 1 billion. Right, and I talked about what happens in 60 minutes. That's massive. 1 billion hours watched on YouTube every day. Massive. So again, if you can learn anything from this, is that you have to be very, very specific in your content, very, very specific in understanding what that person is looking for and how you can actually connect with them as well. And interesting, YouTube is predominantly male as opposed to female. All right, so WhatsApp. Total number of worldwide users of WhatsApp, 2 billion, right? Pretty big. So it's the same as YouTube. Share of population, 33%. Number of WhatsApp businesses, 50 million female, and this is worldwide. And then again, a skew towards male as well. And that would actually be interesting. A comparison you could do might be to see, is it because it's a text-based medium, or because it's less photographs and less images and less videos? It'd be actually fascinating to maybe dig down a little bit deeper in that as well. TikTok. Who's on TikTok? I'm not. I haven't been on TikTok, but I might give it a go just to kind of see what the world of TikTok has. But 689 million users, 11% above 13. 32 app downloads in September 2020. Again, I guess video that's actually quite interesting. Contrary to what I would have thought, is that the TikTok is obviously video based, but it's about, fairly equal, 53 to 47%. But anyway, something to consider. All right, so show me the money, right? E-commerce adoption by age and gender. So this is quite interesting, but guess what? What does that mean? That means everybody is looking for e-commerce capability. And 75, 74, 75, 77, 73, 70, 60, 69. Everybody's looking for to be able to complete an e-commerce transition. And this doesn't mean an online retailer, right? This does mean the service-based businesses as well. So keep that in mind is people are looking for that convenience. They're looking for that opportunity to be able to say, this is how I can actually complete that part of my journey. So we need to understand that This means, again, that everybody's looking here. It's not specific to gender. It's not specific to age. It's actually specific to how people want to continue with their journey. They want to buy from you. People want to buy from you. It's very, very clear that this is what this says. You have to give them that opportunity to show them how can they actually buy from you. So in terms of activities, search online for a product or service. What are we actually doing online is basically what this comes down to. So 82% of us have searched online from any device. 89 have actually visited an online retailer or store. 89%. So again, people are looking to buy. People are looking to make purchases, and not just physical products, but digital products, digital services in general as well. Used a shopping app on a mobile phone or on a tablet, 66% purchased a product online. Any device, again, 74%. That's pretty average. And then use mobile phone to make that purchase as well. So people are using that to buy what they need. So they're quickly able to see, hey, it's on my phone. What do I actually need to be able to make that purchase as well? So again, people are wanting to buy. There's not an issue about people not wanting to buy. The issue is, can they find you, and can they find what they're looking for in terms of what you're offering and how your offering is out there and what you're doing about it as well. So again, I talked about this earlier, but e-commerce adoption, internet users aged 16 to 64 who say they bought something online via any device in the past month. So globally, it's about 74%. Let's see some of the highlights: Austria, Italy, Switzerland, Singapore. So in this space, we're higher. We're 75 to 80%. And in this space, we're very consistent, and then dropping off here as well. So again, what does that tell you? That tells you that people are wanting to buy, but they may not be able to find you. And that's the key ingredient here, is how do they actually find you? What are you doing that allows them to do that? What parts of your digital strategy are enabling that? What parts of your digital ecosystem and assets are enabling that as well? So we need to look at that. What can you actually do better here? So just a little bit of brand discovery. So what are people doing to find you? Search engines. This one is actually quite interesting. Ads on television. About 32% still rely specifically on ads on television. I talked about this word of mouth. Ads on social is huge, still 26%. Brand or product websites, yes, that's important, right? It's one of your assets that you'll definitely need as well. Online retail websites, ads on websites, TV shows or films, recommendation or comments, and consumer review sites as well. So this is how people are finding you. This is, or rather, finding your competitor. These are the tools that they're using right now. So in terms of ad spend, I talked a little about ad profiles and that sort of thing. We were going up fairly decently, but then COVID hit, and actually people were businesses were spending less. So we've seen an increase in e-commerce. We've seen an increase in spending, but the ads to get people there has actually gone down 24% in Q1 and 4% in Q2. So that means that ads have become cheaper. And that means that businesses rather have been able to get better sort of bang for their buck on search ads and how they're actually making their spend there. They're still able to reach a larger audience with that spend, but the cost of ad spend has gone down. So quarterly change in search ad cost per click. Again, we've seen a little fluctuation between 2019, but then we've seen a large drop as well. So this is the cost per click. So this means that your ads are cheaper to run now than they were back at the beginning of 2020. So something to consider. When do you jump in? Now, or could you have jumped in back then when it was a lot more expensive to be able to do that? All right, so those were stats from We Are Social, Hootsuite, and Simon Kemp. So it's a huge shout out to them. They always do some brilliant work with stats as well. So now something from SEMrush. They're actually very detailed in some of their analysis and understanding of, okay, well, what does this mean for my business? So I'd suggest that you take a look at SEMrush. They provide a lot of marketing tools and marketing analysis as well. But they looked at 2020 and said, well, what is most important here? What are most people looking for? They actually are searching for social networking and translate words, which is quite interesting, which is obviously a huge segment. This is an interesting one. Food, 1%. So despite the fact that there's been a lot of growth in the food industry, it's actually been a very small search term, which shows you how big it is. But entertainment, shopping, weather, news, web services, and that sort of thing. So if you look at it from a business perspective, shopping, news, potentially web services, entertainment, social networks, those are where the opportunities lies as well, to be able to do that. Just in terms of entertainment, this is what's people are mostly looking for as well. 136 million people looking for a Netflix, Disney Plus, 12 million as well. So it just goes to show you that the growth of video streaming services isn't slowing down. What they've actually also looked at is, okay, so people are looking for stuff, and I get into this one very quickly in terms of best versus cheap versus free. And we need to understand, how does that actually fit together? So if you're looking for specific terminology, SEMrush has looked at, okay, well, what's important? What are people actually looking for that get results, get the highest click-through rate and that sort of thing? So for gifts and flowers, it's day delivery, local florist, farm fresh. And it kind of goes down the road. So people are looking for very specific thing: consumer electronics, trusted SINs, tech support, authorized dealer, sports and outdoors, top brands, shop latest, premium outdoor, health and beauty, free samples, limited edition, award winning. So these are all things that people are actually typing in and saying, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for free samples, health and beauty. These are call to actions as well. So Australian incumbents, so this is basically saying this would be the challengers as well. So there are some here in Australia: eBay, Ozbargain, Kmart, which is actually a surprise, Harvey Norman, Kogan, Catch, Chemist Warehouse, those two, Big W, Target, Myers. So it's interesting, I haven't seen Amazon in there, but these are sort of the e-commerce heavyweights that people are using as we get into that also. So a monthly average advertising spend in e-commerce. So again, most businesses are spending $0 to $1,000. So this is monthly. If you're not spending if you're not spending, $0 to $1,000, you need to start somewhere. And that's actually a very good point to start. And that's what it's showing too, is that this is where a lot of businesses start, and then they increase it over time as well. So you don't have to go and spend $150,000 right off the hop. You can graduate into that and grow that over time, but you do need to get started, is what the industry is doing right now. So they're experimenting. They're deciding that, hey, guess what? I can spend a little bit. I can, allocate a certain part of my budget, of my revenues, towards marketing spend, ad spend. So they're jumping in, and they're saying that this is important to be able to do. So digital marketing in a post-COVID-19 world, a great quote from Olga. Shout out to Olga Andrienko. She runs SEMrush, and is the marketing director there. But the COVID-19 pandemic has not only accelerated some of the trends we are seeing in digital marketing before, and it has also brought about some unexpected changes. SEMrush's research revealed that the shift occurred so quickly that many businesses failed to adapt. Keyword here, failed to adapt to the new normal, as was the case with Australia's recent retail drama. We had what they call the retail apocalypse in January, and this was before COVID hit. And it actually brought down, a lot of companies went into a bankruptcy protection and that sort of thing. No brick and mortar business can afford to stay offline if its competitors are already making significant ground with regards to market share online. So it's really important to look at that. What are you doing to expand that digital capability? What are you doing to be able to work with that as well? So not cheap and easy, best is best. And this is actually a trend over the years as well. People aren't looking for cheap, or they're looking for it less, right? Cheap is going down. Okay, not everybody needs something cheap. Free, yeah, it used to be important, but guess what? That's inclining downward as well. What's going up is best. So this means people are looking for the best of what's out there. So just a little trick, if you want to talk about something, talk about the best. Talk about how your service is the best, how you're able to fill that gap as being the best as well. Not that free doesn't work. Free can be used, well, has been used in a lot of spam campaigns. So be careful how you use it, but look at how do you actually describe your product as the best for your customer as well. And just an interesting comparison of cheap versus best around the world. So best has gone up substantially. Cheap, not so much in Australia. In the US, similar. And then cheap has gone way down in Germany. Just some fun stats to see as well, what's happening around the world. Oh, and here's an interesting one, France. So the best goes up and then it comes down, which is quite surprising. So they're reversing the trend, and actually cheap is going up. So what are they doing in France? I'd love if anybody actually any of my French friends, you tell me why is cheap going up in France and down everywhere else around the world. So all right, so what's easier, around the block or around the world? 100% commitment is easier than 90% commitment. When you fully commit to something, the decision has been made. Pretty easy, right? The data shows you that journey. It shows you what can be accomplished. It shows you what needs to be done and how you can do it. So that's super critical for being able to do that. So just a quick little check-in. Hope everybody's doing well. Almost finished here. Just a couple more, about 10 more minutes, and then we'll be able to wrap up as well. But if you do have questions, please type them in the chat. If you're on live, please please type hashtag replay as well, so that I can get to your questions as we get into that. All right, so the new digital experience business models. So this is saying, how do we take that data and how do we make it better? How do we make it for the business as well? The new digital experience business models are rolling out now and are capturing significant market share in record time. Which model is right for you, right? We saw that spike in terms of, actually, that's not quite right. We saw the spike, and then a drop, but a continuation. That's still not quite right. We've seen it's an elevated spike, right? Is my point. So what do we actually look for in a business model? So as we've seen with COVID, it's actually adjusted that sort of modern business models and the legacy business models. So two things to look at here. Modern business models is taking a look, and I've got an example of a couple that I'll show you just so it makes sense, is using digital. Fundamentally, it's how do you actually connect with your audience along their journey to be able to reach their goal, reach their objectives. Legacy business models, that's your traditional retail. And you do see some traditional legacy business models online. Like, just because you're online does not mean that you're not using an old business model as well. So it's very key to understand. So both of them, during February and March, obviously a downward incline in general because of everything going and happening and that sort of thing. But during a recovery, the main recovery in April, May, when a lot of countries were at least accelerating past this, we see it divergent. Okay, we see it diverging. We see modern business models reaching greater levels of success than legacy business models. And why is this important? This means that people are able to adapt. Businesses are able to adapt to that changing scenario of what does the business environment look like? What is it that my customers are actually looking for? What is it that my audience wants to see as well? So we've seen it. It's been very clear. The businesses that have a modern business model, those are the ones that have seen a higher rate of recovery in terms of, I think this is based on return price as well. So just something, it's based on an index, the Russell 3000 index. So that is something that you can look at to say, well, is my business model just something, I'm just selling products online, which, you know what, it's a good business model, but how can you improve that in the 2020s to be able to look at different sections of that journey, different understandings that your customer might have, different aspect that allow you to connect with your audience on and your customers on different levels. So you're not moving just from a transactional model to something a lot more larger than that. And that comes down to the experience economy. So the experience economy, that was kind of a term brought to, I think, in the late 90s, that people are looking for experiences, which is great. It's fantastic because we're able to do that. The change we're seeing now is that it's more about businesses. Okay, now we're seeing it about businesses. So how do they produce this experience economy? And how do they produce this digital experience economy for business? So we've seen this. Initially, it started as at a consumer level, right? Here's my little consumer. Oh, happy face. Sorry. Happy face. Anyway, this is the consumer. So initially, this experience economy was based on the consumer. Now it's gone back, which was basic products and service, right? Commodities, that sort of thing. How do we create a better storefront? How do we create a better opportunity for stuff to buy, for people to buy stuff in our shop, kind of thing? Then we decided, well, how do we make goods? How do we actually produce those goods? So whether it's white label or what. Next came, how do we actually deliver that service? And we're seeing again that democratization of an Uberification of delivery services as well. And then finally, we're at the stage of experience. And if you can look at this, undifferentiated, basically everybody has this stage down here. Okay, everybody is just a commodity because you're able to sell products or sell simple services or whatever the case may be. Everybody's doing that. The barrier to entry is not down here, it's up here. So we have to increase that level of what are we doing for the digital experience economy, and that's by creating that last stage is more of a premium, more differentiated. There's so much more to be able to do that. So unless you're creating a digital experience, a remarkable digital experience worth remembering, you're just like the other guys. You're just delivering a service. You're just making goods. And you know what? You're just producing a commodity. And that's not what we need to be doing here. We need to increase the value. We need to increase our competitive position as well for the digital experience economy. So I talked a little bit earlier about what is digital transformation. It is confusing. It's a confusing word, right? What does it even mean? It means that we're able to understand these steps. And I've got a quick little model that I'll show that will allow you to see that. It means that we're enabling digital, not just technologies, but digital capabilities that allow us to build a digital asset, that allow us to build connection points in our digital ecosystem as well. And we have to understand that this is a growth process. Think of it like evolution, like growth of a business. You're not just doing the same old. You're actually deciding that you're able to do something different, whether it's if you're here making goods to delivering a service, whether it's moving from delivery service to staging an experience. That's what's really critical here. So how concerned are global businesses by digital disruptions? No industry is safe. Across the board, 2/3 of global businesses are either moderately or very concerned about being digitally disrupted. This means somebody's going to replace their business, or the customers are going to stop going to that business because they've been not able to adapt. They've been not able to evolve, or whatever the case may be. So it's a very big concern. It's not just your business in terms of saying, what platforms do I need to use? How do I market? What's my digital strategy? All these kind of things. It's global. We have to decide, are we going to be disrupted or be the disruptor? Or how are we going to create this experience that's so important? This is what customers are looking for. This is what consumers are demanding. This is what your audience wants to be able to experience, is the experience without question. So are businesses struggling to meet customer demands for high quality digital experiences? Yes. As I showed earlier, 75% on average are people willing to buy. They've got their credit card ready. They're willing to buy from businesses who are able to provide. And unless you're in that equation, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change as well. So yes, businesses are struggling. There was again that peak, which dropped off, but continued at a growth rate of 35% over and over. So we need to look at that. How can we actually implement a digital strategy that works properly as well? These are all stats from Optimizely, how to win in the digital experience economy as well. The cool sort of summary from this is, to what extent has experimentation impacted the bottom line? And this is talking about digital experimentation specifically. So again, you don't have to create a new website. You can create a new landing page. You don't have to create a $100,000 a month advertising campaign. You can run test campaigns to be able to see and do different things. So it's all about experimenting. But what does that mean? Well, in 32% of the cases, it increased revenue by 5 to 9%, or 10 to 14, 26% of the case, it increased your revenue by 26%. So if you can imagine, if you're doing some experiments, you can increase your revenue by, what is that, 15 to 24%, just by trying things out, just by seeing how does this work. Okay, again, you run small campaigns. Again, you run specific activities that say, this is what's going on. This is what I can test. It doesn't mean you have to build a whole new platform. It doesn't mean that you have to, create a whole new social network. What it does mean is that you try it out, you test it, test your assumptions. The future of B2B sales. So this is just pointing out, okay, what's happening here in terms of sale. We're seeing this now, and we're going to see more of it, but it's a conjunction of people, process, and technology that says that we need to be able to combine these. So right now we're at, I think the digital, not adoption, but the implementation of technology goes something like this, right? So if we look at where are we along that adoption, this is the 30%, and this is, say, the 60%. So we need to be able to uplift our whole business to that. So what are we going to need? We're going to need processes. We're going to need people. We're going to need technology. It doesn't mean that you have to reinvent technology. It doesn't mean that you have to, create something new. That's not what innovation means. It means that we're actually able to use this specifically through hyper automation, through artificial intelligence, and through scaling digital. Once you have that platform, once you have that capability, you're basically able to scale it anywhere around the world, which is so powerful. It's an opportunity that we've never had before. Talking about business models, this is the Google messy middle, as I was talking about before. And they did an analysis that said there's a lot going on here. It's darn confusing. There's a lot to consider. There's a lot to be concerned about. But fundamentally, it looks at what's the end game? How do we unwind that, which is super important. So if you have time, there's a brief history of evolution of marketing models. There's a lot to go in. They've been around for a while, right? 1898. So marketing's been around a while. It's going to continue to be around. And there's different models that fill the space as well. The most recent was Zero Moment of Truth, which was launched by Google in 2011. Obviously, there's others also. And this is what they call the messy middle. So people are searching for all of this stuff up here in this fuzzy space. They find a trigger. The trigger moves them into, let's see how this goes. And then we say, hey, will this actually work for me? And then eventually we're moving to purchase. So this understands the fact that it's going to take some time. It's not instantaneous. People are looking for your solution, but they're exploring other options. So you need to be, understanding of you're one click away from your competitors in the digital space. That's what it comes down to. So how do you actually define that click? And that's why it's so important, as I was speaking of earlier, is how do you actually define that click? It's not necessarily how many clicks you have, but it's making every one of those clicks count as well, so that you're able to capture that. So again, there's a lot of depth here, but just to understand that we're all looking at triggers, we're all looking then at exploration, we're all evaluating it, and eventually we'll make a purchase. So we as businesses have to understand that process so that we can actually do something about it, as I mentioned about the process. So this is part of it. All right, so distance is irrelevant. How are you defining your digital assets and ecosystem that surprise and delight around the block or to every corner of the globe? So one of the things I love to talk about is what I call the difference between a safari or expedition. A lot of businesses are on a safari, meaning what? What does a safari mean to you? It means that you're just going out and you're looking and seeing and watching the lions and the tigers from the safety of your vehicle and that sort of thing. An expedition is really fundamentally doing the work. It's taking those abilities, those capabilities, those understandings to say, we're going to design something specific to go on a journey. It's not something that we just start suddenly. It's something that we plan and prepare for. It's something that we go and we do things. We're discovering and we're doing things. So ask yourself, are you just observing and seeing, or are you discovering and doing? And that's the primary difference as well. And we have to look at it too. It's like it's a massive journey, right? It's not going to be over in a day. It's not going to take, even a month. Like if you're talking business, you're talking long term. Is a safari long term? Not usually, unless you're the one who's running the safaris. But again, an expedition, what is that? That allows you that ability to be able to get out there, to create a plan, to create a strategy, to create some understanding, to bring your team, your tools, your tactics, that sort of thing. And it's not just about getting to the summit either. So an expedition up Mount Everest, it wasn't just to get to the summit, right? Let's be perfectly clear. The journey is much broader than that. It's going up, getting up to the summit, it's coming back down. It's being prepared at all the base camps to be able to get to that next level as well. And then it's about coming back down, that you are, again, better than before. You've been able to summit Mount Everest, which not many people have done. You've been able to go to the Antarctic or the South Pole or whatever the case may be, and not everybody's able to do that. So why do we want to do that? The journey to discovery and opportunity are already sitting on your mountain of value. So what we need to look at is that this isn't so much important in terms of just changing your business. Like some of the big buzzwords of 2020 are pivot and shift and all that kind of stuff. It's really not about that. Not sort of starting with a clean slate. Of course, if you want to, that's certainly an option. But guess what? We're already there. You already have a lot of value. It's just actually how you create that journey for your audience that you're able to extract that value. So really the pivot or the shift or the change comes from being able to understand that journey that you're taking your customer on and how you're able to do that. And the mountain typically is chaos, confusion, uncertainty. That's what we're trying to overcome here. That's what we're trying to get to the summit. And again, it's not going to be easy. It's going to take us some steps, and I've outlined these in the 10 base camps to get you there. And the funny thing is the summit's not that final destination. I mean, a lot of the rah-rah and hoorah kind of stuff is just get to the summit. Just get to the summit. Yes, absolutely, get to the summit. But you have to have a plan for continuing. And that's what I call the digital expedition. Gets you to the digital promised land where you have clarity, certainty, and competency. And what it does fundamentally is it gives you that choice to say, this is what's really important for me and my business. And this is how I'm going to be able to move forward. This is how I'm going to be able to scale. This is how I'm going to be able to understand. This is how I'm going to be able to survive as well, which is really critical. Do I have the pieces in place to survive right now? It's a huge question, but it requires, an even bigger answer, because that's what's fundamentally important here. And yes, a lot of businesses will survive. There are going to be some that aren't going to make it. And I'll show you some quickly that aren't going to make it, or haven't made it, or have to shift dramatically, or haven't used and leveraged what they know. No. So fundamentally, it's what I call the digital expedition worksheet. And if you, at the end, I've got an offer for a few of these gifts as well, that you can actually walk through. So basically it takes you through these 10 steps that say, these are the pieces that I need. I'm not going to go into all of them, obviously, just because of time, but I am going to show you some details, some of these as well, as we get into it. So inflection in economy, how do you make a difference? So this is fundamentally important, because we decide we can't control the economy. We can't control we can within reason, the spread of the pandemic, but we can't control the pandemic itself. We have to decide what's important to us and when we actually decide to get started. So we have to take a look. Are we going to start today? Are we going to wait for tomorrow? Or are we going to wait for the day after tomorrow? This is what I call, if you've studied math, it's not what I call, but it's what is called an inflection point. And by deciding when we're going to make a difference, we can actually have an impact. So we have to decide now what's important. We can either do strategic, which is reinforcing success, if we say, let's start now to do something, or if we just say, let's do something. Unfortunately, with doing something, it can be quite unstable. because we're not sure. We might, and it's a different thing from experimenting. Just doing something doesn't mean that, or means that you don't have a clear strategy. It means that you're just trying things out reflexively, spontaneous, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't mean that you have a plan, that you have a specific activity that you want to complete as well. So you have to be clear in that also, so that you understand what the difference is between, I'm just going to try something, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to try it, to say, hey, I'm going to try something with a plan, with a strategy, with an understanding that these are my tools, these are my tactics, these are my team as well. And finally, if we do nothing, it's reinforcing failure. It's just going to continue down as well. So are you going to sit on your hands, right? Or are you going to actually do something? You have to decide when you're going to do it. And these are the models that you can actually use to be able to do and understand that, getting into that. Within the base camps, there's a huge concept called signals and data. And this is basically understanding what I've been talking about here is what is the data telling you? Where does it tell you you should focus? Where does it say that you can, work a little bit harder, or work a little bit better, or can create more connections? That's what signals and data does. So we have to look at what are the signals being sent from your audience, and ask yourself the question, is your audience wearing noise canceling headphones? Do they actually want to hear what you're saying? Are they actually engaging? Are they actually understanding what you want to say as well? So we have to be able to clearly see what that is. This is what I call your missing bullet strategies and insights. And basically, I'll quickly go through this, but during World War II, there was some airplanes, or as part of the Allied war effort, bombers were sent out. They came back and they had obviously some bullet holes in them. These are engines. Just so there's no questions there. The aircraft came back and they had some bullet holes in them and that sort of thing. So what they were thinking of doing was, well, okay, let's just put armor plating on these parts of the aircraft, because that's where the bullets are going. But the planes still weren't coming back. And basically what they missed is that they weren't coming back because the bullets were impacting the areas that were critical to the aircraft itself. The fuel tanks, the cockpit, the engines, the tail. So those were the aircraft that weren't making back, but putting armor plating did nothing because they didn't put it in the right place. So the point is that you have to really understand the strategic significance of your plan, so that you don't just look at doing something, right? You look at doing something strategic to give you that growth, to give you that scalability as well. So quickly about transformation, where are you currently going? Where are you now? This is transformation right here. Where are we right now? Are we looking at it from a transactional? Remember I showed you the commodity to the experience a few slides back? That's what transformation is. How do we actually create these levels that allow us to differentiate on price and value and that sort of thing? And we need to be able to do that fairly quickly. And this is a digital transformation map that I've created that shows you these are the elements that are super important for your business. And there are 6 of them. The state, the knowledge, the symptoms, the zones, the tools, the strategic, the outcomes, that sort of thing. If you'd love to see if you'd like to go dive a little bit deeper in there, go into the resource, Digital Expedition resources, and I will get, you've got some more detail there as well. So what does this fundamentally look like? A nice triangle, okay? But again, it's not just up to the summit and stop, it's to the summit and back down, because that gives us the clarity that we need. So back to what I was speaking about earlier, safari or expedition, hopefully you can see the difference, and hopefully you can see that this is an expedition. This is the model of expedition. Do we want to be able to discover and do, or just observe and see? And that's fundamentally the difference that we need to take here. That's what digital transformation does for the business. It allows you to see that difference. Here's a safari, here's an expedition. Do I want a safari? Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they're bad things, but where will it get you? If you go on a safari, will it get you up that mountain? Probably not. If you're doing an expedition, you're planning, you're preparing, you're understanding, you're getting the people, you're getting the what are they called? The people who help you up the mountain. What are those called? Can't remember. If you remember, please tag tag me. It's right on the tip of my tongue. I'll probably remember. Hopefully I'll remember it before the end of the day. All right. So anyway, how do we actually convert this triangle into something useful? This metaphor of the mountain, let's be honest, this is a metaphor, but it actually has a fundamental understanding here that's super important. So we have to look at how do we unwind the chaos, like Google talked about. What's the best way to cross the Grand Canyon? And fundamentally, we need to look at these three critical intersections: the point of certainty, the point of competency, and the point of clarity. And if we have these pieces in this model, we're able to move forward. We're able to move up to the summit and back down to continue that journey. So this is the digital AMPS approach that I speak of. And AMPS is A for audience, M for method, P for process, and S for story. And these are the significant elements that you need to be able to create a model that works in the digital 2020s. Okay, fundamentally, it's about understanding how do you put these pieces in place? How do you build this expedition from a safari? How do you actually grow that business? How do you scale it? It's all in the models that you decide to use. So what building blocks will you need for your expedition? Very, very critical. I'm just going to quickly go into this one as well. And as we can see, once we have all these pieces, we have clarity, we have certainty, and we have competency. We know what we need to do. We know how to do it. We're certain that it's going to work, or we're certain that we understand how to test it. And that becomes then our competency. We have the skills to move forward. It's not just a random guess. It's not just, oh, let's just try something. It's thinking strategically besides just doing nothing. All right, so this third wave of business, again, I'm just going to expand this out a little bit so you can quickly see what it means. This fundamentally says we've got three elements: the digital experience, digital experience, personalized audience experience, remarkable, worth remembering. We have value creation that surprises and delights, and we have a digital delivery that's on demand, so it's instantaneous. And that doesn't mean that you have to necessarily deliver it as a physical product, but it means that you can actually produce that capability to have that. A couple of good examples that I've seen over the last 9 months develop. The first one is the HelloFresh meets Jamie Oliver meets Uber Eats. And fundamentally, what's that saying is that if we take a look at this food industry, this food manufacturer that provides fresh ingredients, as they say, and it provides them on a weekly basis, but can we improve that model? Absolutely. So what if you could produce or provide food to your customer? They pick the ingredients or they pick the recipe. What if you can then create that opportunity for you to deliver that as, Jamie Oliver? And I'm not saying you have to be Jamie Oliver. I'm certainly not. But fundamentally, what it's saying is that how do I express that celebrityness of it, to being able to pull people together to watch what you're doing as you prepare this dish? And again, the metaphor is food, but it works for every industry. So how are you sort of that celebrity Jamie Oliver? How can you connect the dots by creating that digital experience, creating that opportunity for people to connect? And then again, the final step of this is meets Uber Eats or not HelloFresh, but Deliveroo. And there's obviously a few out there that deliver the instant food on demand and that sort of thing. So just to put it in perspective, what if you could have people order from you specific ingredients for a specific time and place? You then bring them together on a Zoom platform, or any of the live platforms or whatever the case, where you can grab your customers together, you can show them an experience, and you're able to deliver that, within a couple of hours. Can you do this now? Absolutely. All of this technology is available. You have click and collect. You have Uber type delivery services that you can connect to your website. You don't have to be a restaurant that you can get a product delivered. You become the expert in terms of what are you able to do and how are you able to provide that as well. So it's a very quick model to say, what do I have here in the value that surprises and delights? Well, I'm bringing you all together into a wonderful place and time. I'm able to create that opportunity with products, with services. And one of the new things that's just come out as well is having physical boxes accompany digital events. You get beforehand, before the event, you're able to actually receive a package of goodies or swag or books or courses or workbooks or whatever. It's delivered to your door before you actually connect to that Zoom call or that Zoom conference or that hop-in platform or whatever the case may be, that conference platform. You're able to experience a bigger part of this. We have to live within sort of the limitations that we've seen, but again, at the same time, it creates a massive opportunity for us. And one of the ones that hasn't worked out so well is the Cirque du Soleil versus Disney. And this is quickly just, Cirque du Soleil went into receivership, I think, of June of this year. Obviously, people can't get to events, which is very clear, the paintings on the wall kind of thing. But what they didn't do is they didn't say, hey, how do we actually convert? How do we translate our opportunity? How do we, take all of this, if you think about it, 25 plus 30 plus years of content, could they not redistribute that? Could they not create those content opportunities for companies to say, hey, this is what we do, this is how we provide value? It's about the content. And yes, the experience of being at a Cirque du Soleil show is extremely mesmerizing, but when you're forced to work in a different manner, what can you do differently? And whether or not it comes back is irrelevant. What if they could have become the Netflix of spectacle? They provide a live streaming service where you're able to watch any of the, again, 30-year history of their shows at a click of a button. They're actually able to send you, director's cuts and memorabilia and different products based on the shows and that stuff to your door before you sit down and watch that show. Like, they had a huge opportunity to create an amazing digital experience that they didn't do. Then you compare that with Disney. They took one of the best, most popular plays, Hamilton, and actually put it onto their streaming service within months. They didn't create a Hollywood production. They just filmed or videoed the actual play itself, and obviously there was some editing and that sort of thing, but they were able to do that so quickly. They were able to bring that to market because people couldn't go to a Hamilton production. They saw what the market was actually doing. They saw it and said, wait a sec, we can actually change this equation. We can adapt, we can transform how we actually deliver our product through digital experience, through value creation, through digital delivery. And they added it to their streaming service, within a matter of months. So Cirque du Soleil, I think they've been bought out by another company recently in the last couple of months, but they missed the huge opportunity. They used to be one of the case studies of innovation in the blue ocean strategy of being innovative, yet they could not do that. So doesn't, I don't want to sort of leave the impression that they were stuck and they couldn't do that. But what I do want to leave the impression with is that they could have used this. They could have leveraged digital far more than they actually were. They just decided, for whatever reason, I don't know the insides of it, but they decided that we're not going to adapt. We're just going to continue to do events. And you're seeing a massive division too between entertainment companies, or entertainers rather, who are deciding that, hey, guess what? I can actually put together a show in my garage, in my basement, and I can have participants from around the world pay a certain, ticket price. It may not be as big as being on live and on location, but they've expanded around the world. So it's no longer just the people who are in that city, or it's no longer just the cities that they go tour. They can actually create these massive, engaging digital experiences. And there's a lot of them out there. There's more that are coming that allow people to engage on their own level and get to those events. And those are the ones that are actually leveraging this. And then the big question is, do they stop? Once people can come to my events, should I stop doing my digital events? I would say if you stop, you're completely missing that fundamental opportunity here, because you're saying that market remotely is not as important as those that can actually come. So why can't you do both? Why can't you have that opportunity that says, hey, I've got this digital event that allows you that engagement, that experience, that value creation, getting it, when's important, and guiding people through that. That is the fundamental change that we really need to look at. So that's a key ingredient here. And we're seeing it with wineries. We're seeing it where they'll deliver you tastings of the wine, and then they'll join together in a session where you come join me at Zoom. I'm the sommelier, for example, not in real life, but I'll walk you through these tastings and I'll show you what's being done as well. And there's a lot of examples of people actually saying that this is a capability that they can add, and they can add continuously. And then you have the other side of the argument where it's like, oh, I'll just sit back and wait, and when events go back, I'll complain about that I can't have events now, but I'm not actually doing anything about it. Which is actually quite surprising, because you have a massive market available. You just have to look at how do you put these pieces together. So this is a good starting point. Look at your personalized audience experience, right? Are you creating something remarkable, worth remembering? How am I delivering it? Am I delivering it on demand? And that value, am I creating surprise and delight as well? And you're seeing a lot and more of these companies that are creating this specifically. So finally, just what you can do is you can create a flight plan of this. It's not in a straight line, which is perfectly okay. But you take, just if I might, you take these 4 pieces and these 12 elements, and you're able to put those all in a process as well. So if you'd like more information on that, happy to walk you through that. But this gives you a fundamental plan, a 90-day plan to say, this is what I'm going to do based on these critical ingredients that are so important to be able to move forward from that as well. Just almost ready to close off here, but one of the things that's really important, and I talked about the inflection point, right? When do you decide you're getting off that curve? Are you doing it now? Or are you doing it a little bit later, or down the road? And then are you doing something, or are you doing something strategic, or are you just kind of waiting and seeing? This all comes into play because 1 degree is a fundamental concept that I like to talk about a lot as well, but it comes up in the aviation world, which I used to be a part of. But for every 60, let's use kilometers here, every 60 kilometers forward, if I'm 1 degree off, 1 degree, I'll be 1 kilometer off after I travel 60. So if I'm traveling forward, I look at this, if I travel 60 kilometers, I'm only 1 degree off, right? What is 1 degree? It's not very much. But if I continue that, I'm going to be 1 kilometer off. So traveling, a couple blocks, not a big deal. It's like, oh, it's just over there across the street. Flying across the country, it's a huge, a larger error. And as I, travel around the world, that error becomes bigger and bigger. So I'm not actually going to get there. So fundamentally, that's what's important as well. And I just want to quickly show you something that I've recently put together. But this is the tetrahedron of the AMPS approach as well. So what it does is it actually allows you to put these different pieces together based on what you're looking at and how you put these pieces, how important these pieces are as well. So depending on what you're looking at, you're able to see what is fundamental here and how can I actually interact with each of these simultaneously as well. So if you'd love a copy of that, please just send me a message and I'll send that in the gift pack as well. It's a new way of defining your business model and how you can actually pick up your business model and see it and use it and interact with it as well, which is fundamentally fantastic. So your digital challenge. All right, I've been going for a while, haven't I? So if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat or in the comments as well. And I'll take a look at them as well. And please tag me also so that I can respond quickly. So your digital challenge, it's just another word for opportunity. What's your next 90-day plan must have? So as the world adapts and changes, businesses need to change and transform with the times, and that requires data. The knowledge of knowing what your customer is doing, how they are doing it, and what they want to do. So what are you missing out on? Challengers should see this time as a tremendous opportunity. So what I'm going to suggest is you have your digital challenge. I don't know what it is, but take a look at it. Where are you right now? Where are you going? And what teams, tools, and tactics do you need? So, write those down. And again, if you can, put them in the chat. I'm happy to talk about them also. This fundamentally comes down to your digital experiments as well. And I mentioned that's super important. That's a new way of looking at business. You don't commit yourself to $100,000, $200,000 platform. Commit yourself to running some experiments to test it with small campaigns, with small products, with small activities, assets, changes to your ecosystem that allow you to measure it and see what the response is as well. But you have to do it. So again, where are you right now? Where are you going? How will you get there? What team tools, tactics do you need? And some other questions to ask is, what are you going to test? Fundamentally, take a look at how do I think strategically to kind of get myself, how do I move from, oh, let's just try something, to how do I be more specific? This is your expedition. So go back to the digital expedition, that model, and see how that can actually fit in. How will you measure success, and what are your base camps of your business? So how are you going to take your customer, your audience on that journey as well? All right, so just about ready to wrap up. So where are you right now? Fundamentally, take a look at what I call the 7 disciplines of digital leadership. So these outline the specific steps, the specific processes that you need to look at in terms of strategy, website campaigns, advertising, social media, all those things. Take a look at and see how you compare and what's really important and what's not. And if you do that, if you go to leadership.digital, I'll actually get you a free paper copy of Breakthrough, my latest book, Unleash Your Remarkable Brand Value, Influence, and Authority. And I'll also send you a digital expedition worksheet so that you can actually walk through that different model as well. Here are my contact details. Please reach out on social, Doyle at Dep Digital, or 61413106880 as well. So helpful, please like and share. Replay, please leave a comment. Love to hashtag replay as well. If you have any questions, please reach out at any time, Doyle at Digital, Dep.digital rather. And if you want to set up talk strategy, bit.ly/meet with Doyle. Some early Christmas gifts that I said I was going to send out. So digital expedition cheat sheet, do the leadership.digital assessment, the benchmark. For those who have registered, you'll get, or watch the replay officially, you'll get the new digital expedition micro training course. You'll also get the breakthrough book, the digital expedition resources, and then the free paperback book if you go to leadership.digital. All right, final links if you want to download the resources, digital expedition resources or digital pulse 2020 resources, where you can see some of the sources of this the data that I was using as well. And when you're ready to talk strategy, just take a look. My calendar, bit.ly/meeting with Doyle. Would love to connect, would love to talk about how you can put a digital expedition, how you can actually leverage this data and leverage the existing economy to your business as well. So it's really exciting times. I mean, obviously we've all been through a lot, but it's more fundamentally about, how do you pick yourself up? How do you actually decide what needs to be done next? Are you continuing to run a safari, or are you going to decide and do an actual digital expedition to really create that stability, create that competency, create that clarity and that certainty as well, as you can see. All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. If you do have any questions, would love to hear from you as well. Thank you for spending time with me. I really appreciate it.